All right, everybody, this is Rick, and today we have a very special guest in Danny Adam, the Toxic Terror. How's it going, buddy?
Not too bad, Rick. How you doing tonight?
Hanging in there. I'm all right. So, basically, what you been up to since this whole pandemic started? I know there's not a lot of professional wrestling going on, obviously. So,
Honestly, I'm keeping busy. I mean, it sucks because there's not a lot of like live wrestling going on, but there's still a lot people can be doing. I recently made it a point to let people know that ever since March, I have been doing nothing but keeping busy. I have been ordering new gear. I have been shooting promos for companies. You know, this is the time to show a company what you have to offer besides your in-ring work. And there's so many people that are just doing nothing. And I'm like, you hold a title for this company. Why aren't you doing something? Promote your company. But here in Massachusetts, gyms reopened in like May, so I was back at the gym, and then I started going to Kevin Landry's Pro Wrestling Combine, started training there, and that's just trying to stay busy, man.
That's awesome because I spent way too much money during the pandemic just buying merchandise. So it's like, I just High Spots, Pro Wrestling Tees. There's like a box every other week, basically coming to my house.
Yeah, I see you used to do the unboxings and stuff.
Yeah, I got way too much, and so I'm trying to calm down now.
Yeah.
But anyways, this is about you, not me. So tell me about how you got interested in professional wrestling.
Which aspect? Being a wrestler or just wrestling?
Actually, why don't you take me all the way back when you were a kid?
I love getting this question, and I hate it at the same time because
I understand. It's probably a really generic question.
It is, but it's the fact that mine's a very boring story. It's just I kind of was always a wrestling fan. When I was a kid, I didn't really, really young, I didn't know what it was. And then when I was a kid, my dad would just occasionally throw it on TV, and we'd watch it in like the early '90s. And it's funny because the company I work for here in Massachusetts now, Truly Independent Wrestling, runs at the Boys and Girls Club, which is in my hometown, and that's where I used to go and watch wrestling shows. My dad would take me. I saw Stone Cold there, Kurgan, if that gives you a time frame of what we were doing, Yokozuna. So now it's cool to think that it's like I came here to see guys like Stone Cold, and now I'm wrestling here. But yeah, it was just kind of something I was always into, and like it always just fascinated me as a kid. Because in the 90s, it was all characters and really outlandish things. And then as I got older, the wrestling progressed. And now as I'm older, I'm a fan of the athleticism of it as well as people playing the characters well.
I think in the earlier 2000s, it was more so people started to concentrate on the wrestling aspect. Like you said, in the late 90s, it was very character-based, Stone Cold and guys like Val Venus and stuff like that. It was like... And, it's like I didn't notice it at the time, but I've gone back because I do retro reviews, too. That's like there's a lot of shit that's like over the top, those characters.
Oh,
and I'm like,
God.
And it's like you can really weed out the crap nowadays. Back then, it was like so fun and exciting to watch. But
it was oversaturated with gimmicks and characters in the mid to late 90s. But if you actually focused on the wrestling, you're like, man, this isn't that great. But it didn't matter because the characters got you into it so much.
Right. But, I mean, at the same time, you did have your, awesome wrestlers. The guys like the Bretts, the Owens, the Benoit, Guerrero.
Oh, absolutely. WCW was definitely something I watched a lot of. Mainly, especially when the Cruiserweight division really started to take off. Your Guerreros. Back when Rey Mysterio went by Rey Mysterio Jr.
Yep.
Psychosis, Juventud, all of them.
I don't like that Mysterio dropped the Junior when he came to WWE.
I don't know.
And
then he started wearing bell-bottom pants. So, I don't know. If he's cool, that's fine. He is still one of the greatest luchadors. So I gotta give him that.
I get what you're saying. He's still getting paid though. Being able to support his family. So that's what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who's your favorite back then, growing up?
When I was a kid. Yeah. Like I said, it was mainly about the characters. So
So nobody in particular.
As I got older, to me it was all about the really cool looking guys. So obviously, to bring it up, rest in peace, Animal. I love the Legion of Doom. Guys coming out with the big spiked shoulder pads and looking all mean. I'm like, these guys are awesome. I don't care what they do in there. It's awesome. Even if Hawk is no selling pile drivers, it's still great. But guys like that, obviously, when the Undertaker kind of got away from the purple glove, actual Undertaker gimmick and started doing the Satan Undertaker gimmick, I was like, oh, this is cool. I like this. Kane, guys like that. Stone Cold, obviously. Who didn't love Stone Cold when they were a kid? So
yeah, we actually discussed him last night on the episode, and it's just because we were watching a WCW match of his where he was a really great technical wrestler.
Oh,
we got to WWE, and post breaking his neck, he was more of a brawler, but the character was still over, and he was still very watchable.
Absolutely, and like that's. I'm not going to say it's a problem with people today, but like a lot of guys that I want to see, they want to be the Stone Cold. They want to be the I'm a heel, but everybody loves me. And it's like, you can't always do that. It's a very special position you have to be put in, and everybody wants to do it. But it's like, it's not meant to be. Yeah, but then as I got older, of course, I love the technical guys like Dean Malenko. Whew.
Yeah.
Love me some Dean Malenko. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, Bret Hart, Owen Hart. So always a good time.
I got a DVD here. If I can, forget it. I recently got a DVD. I was going to show you, but I got stacks of DVDs behind me. I haven't organized them, but I recently got the old ECW DVD of Malenko versus Guerrero, the classic series, where it's like the 3 matches that they originally released it on VHS back in 95, 96, and I just got it on DVD through High Spots, and it's like those 3 matches from ECW are phenomenal. Did you watch ECW as a kid?
Not so much, because I mean it was like when I started watching is when ECW kind of started like when I was like old enough to know what I was watching and things like that. Not when my dad was showing it, it was like ECW was kind of falling off then.
Yeah.
And then when it came back, so when people always talk about old ECW, I'm like, I know some of the guys, but I don't. I mean, I know who came from ECW and what they were about, but unfortunately, no, I never really got the chance to watch it. But if we're talking current favorite wrestlers, I love me some Zack Sabre Jr.
Yeah.
My tag team partner, Guy Slowski, and I'm gonna bring him up a lot. He always sends me stuff. He's like, here, check this out. Hey, check that out. Check this out. And he's like, here, watch this World of Sport match. And here's Johnny Satan, Jim Breaks. And I'm like, I love this. This is great. Show me more.
I'm glad you brought that up, World of Sport. You talking current World of Sport? Or the recent? No. They're like the back in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah. I never knew. And he sent me a match. Was it him who sent me a match? Someone sent me a match. And it was Fit Finlay. Was it World of Sport? And I'm like, I never knew that. He's like got a mullet and like a mustache, and I didn't recognize. Yes. And I'm like, wow. I'm like, I didn't even know these people were in this. This is great.
I know this is another random thing, but I recently got a William Regal, whatever you want to call him, DVD from World of Sport, like his earliest days in England. Man, that is a great disc.
Absolutely.
Set. Yeah, it's like that old English style wrestling was phenomenal.
Right. It's like what Ring of Honor is doing now. Ring of Honor with the tournament, it's like almost the same thing. And I'm like, this is so like everyone's so focused on what AEW and WWE are doing. I'm like, some of you need to sit down and go watch Ring of Honor right now, because what they're doing is not revolutionary, but it's like it's really different from what everyone else is doing right now.
I think it was revolutionary back when they first started because nobody was doing it, and they influenced how the business became as far as groups like NXT or people actually concentrating on the wrestling aspect. I don't know when they formed, 2002, so like 2003, 2004 and forward. The Pure tournament, I watched the first episode of what's going on in the tournament. I haven't watched since. I still need to catch up, but I think that 2021 is going to turn around for Ring of Honor because they had a really rough 2019 and 2020. So it's like, everybody's getting cherry picked for NXT and AEW, and guys just disappeared. But I think that next year is going to be a better year for them. I think that they're looking to sign a lot of people.
So many guys between AEW and like WWE are guys who get brought up from NXT, WWE. They get lost in the shuffle so fast.
Absolutely.
Like Ricochet. I loved Ricochet when he was on Lucha Underground. He was a little, like with everything that was on Lucha Underground or AAA is always really like over the top indie, but it's like he came into WWE or he came into NXT and everyone was so excited, like this is great, and then he got brought up to the main roster and just he's gone.
He was exciting for it was exciting for a couple months and then pushed back down. I saw him. I attempted to watch the pay-per-view last night, but I didn't get too far into it. I usually I get bored with watching the WWE product. Not to insult it. That's why I don't like to talk about it.
No, it's definitely not insulting.
Right. It's like it's just I've come to the point to realize that professional wrestling is you don't have to like just because it's the biggest brand out there. You don't have to like it. It's just it's not what you like. Whereas I'm like I will watch AEW and I enjoy it. I enjoy NXT, but I'm definitely a smaller indie guy. Once I latched onto my first indie show back in the '90s, I just really latched onto the excitement of independent wrestling. Right. As opposed to mainstream wrestling. There's just something special about it.
Indie is such a whole other feel. It's more relaxed. You can have more fun. You're going to see guys doing stuff that you probably wouldn't see on TV because it's not kosher or they don't like it. And not only that, but even when you see like names come down and do an indie show, they're going to act totally different from probably what you see on TV. So it's cool. It's definitely a whole other feel.
I mean, it's different nowadays because back in the day some guys used to come in there, like bigger stars used to come in there and act a little bit lazy because they weren't on TV and they were just there for their payday.
The bump card, as they say.
right Nowadays it's just some of the guys are coming out there and putting in just really good work.
Right, absolutely. And that's the best to see.
Yeah, so I'm glad that we brought up Ring of Honor because not a lot of people seem to be talking about it these days.
Right. Well, there's just some good names in Ring of Honor that just never like obviously when TNA started really getting big, because TNA used to be NWA. If a lot of people who are watching this that are younger don't remember, TNA was NWA, and the NWA Championship, which is very prestiged, was there, and now they kind of obviously they branched away and did their own thing, but. Yeah, that was another one, like Jay Lethal. That's the name I wanted to bring up. Fantastic wrestler. Horrible in TNA. Horrible. Here, let's give him a Macho Man Ric Flair gimmick and totally ruin him.
A lot of people seem to get, he got that over, though. I mean, to a certain extent. I mean, I thought it was kind of corny because my personality is I'm a traditional wrestling fan. I don't like comedic stuff in professional wrestling. There's also some other questions. I'm not necessarily. But however, one of my favorite wrestlers of the 2000s and modern era is basically known for comedy, and Colt Cabana. But I think that guy is. He also knows how to work a catch as catch can style professional wrestling.
Absolutely.
So, but I mean, it's kind of funny to watch him. Like he is. Yeah, you can work multiple different styles.
Oh yeah, that's really what you need right now with in 20. Well, I shouldn't say 2020 because that doesn't really count right now. In like the 2019 and late 20 teens, like you really there's such the separate style of like here's super indie guys and then here's super old school guys. It's like it's good to have a mix. Do both.
Right.
You can be indie and do big fast spots and then slow it down too, and
Right.
You don't see it too often.
There's also another question I do want to ask you. I mean, the current trend, I guess, in professional wrestling, seeing that we're talking about comedic wrestling, I usually get this out of the way kind of. I'm not necessarily a fan, but I always do bring it up. What is your thoughts on intergender wrestling?
I'm all for it. Because let's be real. There is some, in reality, there is just some women that can beat the crap out of.
Absolutely.
Secondly, obviously not right now, and this isn't knocking any WWE at all, but like what was it 3-4 years back in WWE, the women's division was better than the men's. They were putting on better matches.
I think prior to the pandemic, NXT had the greatest women's division.
Fantastic.
I mean, even still right now, but it's like I don't even think that company knows what the fuck they're doing. It's like they're throwing shit at the wall. I haven't watched Raw and SmackDown in probably 7 to 8 months. Like I've just given up.
I don't have the network. I don't have cable, so I just catch what I can. When I'm told, "Hey man, that was a really good match. You should go watch it." I'm like, "All right, cool." Or if they're like, "Hey, that was a train wreck," I'm like, "Cool, now I gotta watch
it." yeah. I don't. I would never have cable right now if it wasn't for my family. Like my wife, she needs to watch her shows. So it's like I watch everything on the internet. Literally, it's like YouTube. I canceled my WWE network finally after years of debating it because there's so many other streaming services that
IWTV is always good.
That's a phenomenal network, and they keep growing and adding things. And now they just had the Super 8 on there, the ECWA Super 8, which I watched, and that was a fucking awesome tournament, and that was a lot of fun to watch. So
right. But yeah, anyway, to get back to it, yes, I'm all for intergender wrestling as long as it's done right and tastefully. Right. Don't have it be some dudes just beating up a woman. Like that's nobody wants that. Like if it's done right and a company can do it right, I'm 100% for it. So
I was really legitimately 100% against it up until I saw Tessa and Sami Callihan in Impact.
Okay.
And then, those are two of my favorite wrestlers in the world today. And then I saw them too, and I was like, oh, this is going to be awful. And I was like, holy shit, that was actually done really well, even though I just don't like watching a guy beat up on a girl. But like you said, in reality, it's like there's a lot of women out there that can probably kick the shit out of a guy.
Right.
But it's also got to look legitimate, I think, if they're going to do it wrestling wise. I discussed this with Kincaid recently, and he pretty much said the same thing. It's got to be made to look proper. So.
Right. Another two things. One that you could watch, and I'll bring them up again. Guy Slavsky sent it to me. Mia Yim versus Keith Lee in Beyond Wrestling. Match
I did see that.
Fantastic.
Saw that. Those are actually Keith Lee's one of my favorites today too, as well.
Keith Lee's great. Yeah. If WWE can keep doing it right, they'll be good by him. But we'll see.
I'm gonna say no because of, I turned on Raw literally for about 5 minutes tonight because I was like bored waiting to come on, and I was like, he was on, and I was like, he just looks like an ass. No offense to him, it's just what WWE took from NXT, where he was phenomenal, and they moved him to Raw, and it's just like they're doing. Once Vince gets his hands on him, it's just
that's it.
It's closer.
I forgot what the second thing was I was gonna say, so that's.
I'm sorry. That's
dude. This is gonna be the whole thing, so be ready for that.
Yeah, I get off track and I interrupt a lot of people. So
I absolutely get off on tangents, so it might happen.
So yeah, and it's always I'll always think of something to say in the middle of your sentence. So
I'm the same way.
So I'm digging your Matt Cross shirt. Did you?
Thank you.
Yeah, that's pretty
like
awesome.
The third time I've gotten this compliment today. I actually made a post on IG when I got to Kevin Landry's, and I made the post, and I had the shirt on, and I played. If we're gonna get into music, I had a Dying Fetus song playing over it, and he messages me. And he's like, "Great shirt and great song." I was like, "My God,
that's awesome!" Like, how many people really? I mean, I guess for that kind of music, people know who they are, but just it's random, like people recognize like music. So.
I know he's more of a punk dude, so I really wasn't expecting that. But that's pretty. I wasn't a punk rock guy, so I'll say it right now. Let's get it out of the way. I was not a punk rock guy. Mine was like nu metal and then death metal. There was no in between. It was like, cool, I'm gonna listen to Slipknot and Mudvayne, and then Cannibal Corpse. All right, this is great.
I did see them in concert once. They opened up.
Oh God, I've seen them so many times.
Probably the first. It might be the only time. They opened up for Anthrax, and when the Misfits reunited, it was like their first show in Hartford after they reunited.
Was it Webster?
Yes.
Oh God, I missed the Webster.
1996. Is that place not in existence anymore?
It still does stuff. They just haven't put on a good show in God knows how long. Every time I see shows now, it's the underground, so it's the little area on the side, and it's just madness in there. I don't want to start rattling off bands no one's ever heard of. So
no, it's quite all right. I usually look at like concert listings there, and I'm like, this has nothing to do with I never want to go see this.
I couldn't tell you the last band I saw there on the big stage. It might have been not Beyond Creation. Malevolent Creation was probably the last big I saw there, and but that was about it. Other than that,
I think one of the last ones I saw there was another Misfits show like years later. Because they would play their Halloween every year.
Of course,
they played Toads for a number of years in Halloween, and then for some reason they ended up.
I've been to Toad's place once.
Only once.
First of all, I think it's like 2.5 hours away from me.
All right.
I mean, now it doesn't seem like a big deal, but back then it was like, oh, that's so far. And now I'm like, 2.5 hours. I did that for wrestling every weekend.
Yeah.
But I was there once. I saw 3 Inches of Blood and Gwar.
Okay.
So that was really cool. And seeing Gwar spray stuff in that tiny ass place was just madness.
I'm gonna tell you, that place is. I've seen Gwar so many times there, and I've seen him with the Misfits a number of times. Whatever incarnation of the Misfits it was. I've seen many different incarnations, but I remember, Gwar spraying all that crap.
Of course.
I just remember walking out and just covered in disgust. Like, it was just gross.
I never really. And again, I've already stated this in the before, so nobody needs to crucify me. I don't listen to punk, so the only time I ever had an interaction with the Misfits was I was walking out of the Palladium I forgot what the show was. It had to have been one of the metal fests at the Palladium in Worcester, Mass.
Yep.
And Misfits were about to go on, and Jerry Only is just kind of like pacing around at the front, and he just kind of stops me. He kind of just stops me, and I looked at him, and I was like, "You're gonna kill us tonight, buddy." And he was like, "Hell yeah!" That was it. That was all he said. I'm like, "Cool." I just got a word with Jerry Only, and it only took like 5 seconds.
He is one of the nicest human beings I've ever met.
Right.
Literally, I met him a million times. Oh, excuse me. I keep kicking the table. I met him before the Misfits reunited, probably like 2 years prior. I met him at the Cheerler Theater in New Jersey. Him and his brother used to sign autographs, Doyle. And then all of a sudden they said, "Hey, we're getting back together." And then every time he goes out of his way to come out into the crowd and talk to fans and just hang out and stuff. Yeah, man. Yeah, man, it's just like he's a really down to earth dude, like, and he's always very conversational, you know. And they've been one of my favorite bands since I was like 13 years old. You know, it's like
I never met any of the others, but I went to again out to Worcester. The Palladium in Worcester is going to get brought up a lot because that was like my second home in like 2008.
Right.
And the Danzig played there. And it was, oh God, who was on that tour? It was like Winds of Plague, which at the time was a deathcore band, and like, Moonspell. You want to talk black metal earlier? We brought it up before. Yeah. Moonspell was on it. And so everyone knows the infamous video of Danzig. You know, what was the song? Something the gods kill.
How the gods kill.
I think so. I can't remember exactly. But you know the video where he falls off stage?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that same song, he's doing the same song, and I'm like, oh God, this is where he fell off stage. And he gets up, he puts his foot up on one of the monitors, and like kind of like pushes himself off, and I'm like, oh my God, he's gonna fall. He didn't fall, but he almost did.
No.
But that was my only interaction with Danzig.
I've never seen him live before. I wish I've actually seen him because I don't know, man. He's like he's one of the very few influential people on me as far as like music goes that I've never seen live. I mean, but by the time I got into that kind of music, he was in a rock band. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like he had moved on from his punk roots. So,
right. It was almost like more of a doom band at that point. You know what I mean? Really goth metal like kind of style at that point.
They've changed their style so many times. I think the first Danzig record that I bought was the first one when it came out, and it was just like a regular kind of. I mean, some of it's like bluesy rock at times, you know. Yeah. It's like it's kind of like in between, like rock and bluesy rock, and then it kind of leans towards metal, but not really.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So, tell me how
we got way off track. Here we go.
Yeah, you know, and that is okay.
I told you it's gonna happen a lot.
Yeah, I'm quite all right with that. And the other purpose is, how did you get into the professional wrestling business? Like, what made you decide that?
Okay, so back in like 2009, 2010 or something, and I always hate to admit this, but I get this is where a lot of people started, is that I had a local backyard fed. No wrestling ring. Not even a wrestling ring. It was carpets on the ground and sawhorses for turnbuckles. That's it. And so the only thing I even learned from that was how to bump. That's the only thing I ever learned.
Right.
And I only did it for like a half a year and then I stopped. Mm-hmm. Ooh, excuse me. And so fast forward to 2016, winter of 2016. My friend Lance Madewell, who's also a wrestler, I've been friends with him for years and years, like 6-7 years. He comes to me and tells me, hey, we're starting a wrestling company and we're doing a wrestling show here in town. And I was like, oh, it's really cool. I'll come out and check it out. I went and I checked the first show, Truly Independent Wrestling, TIW. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. So like I started coming down and helping out at the shows every month. I met the actual owner, who was CJ Scott, the Wolf CJ Scott. He's from like the upstate New York area. He's wrestled for 10, 15 years. And it gets to be about February 2017, maybe March-ish, and they come to me and they're like, so we want to open a wrestling school. And I was like, all right, here's your first student. Sign me up.
All right.
And so what they were doing at the time, the school wasn't open, but they would, like, before a show, they'd bring us all in at, like, 10 o'clock in the morning. Well, not all of us. It was only 2 of us. It was me and, again, Guy Stolowski. Brought us in and said, hey, we'll run some drills with you and we'll teach you some stuff. I learned how to actually bump the real way and stuff like that. And, and that's kind of where it started. But then the school actually opened in August of 2017. at where we were, and that was it. And like I was like, I want to do this, and it gave me a reason to, get in shape, and it gave me a goal. It really gave me something to work toward. So
right.
It's been great. So that's pretty much what did it. Was a buddy of mine, and then they started a wrestling school, and I got to be one of the first students. Unfortunately, since then the school is closed. It was based out of like a mall, and the mall closed. So we were kind of thrown out. And unfortunately, we haven't found a new building yet. And God knows when we will with what everything that's going on.
So where'd you move from there?
Okay, so when they closed, I started. I wouldn't say it was regularly, but every now and then. So they closed in August. No, not August. June or July of 2019. They closed. Right. And actually, we were supposed to have a show scheduled in June of 2019, and they had no power in the mall. And thankfully, the town was really cool, and they were like, you know what? Set up in the parking lot. So we were just set up right in the parking lot. We had an outdoor show, and it was pretty cool. But anyway, so they closed. So I started every now and then I'd take a trip down to Test of Strength, and I'd train with Slick Ryan Brown and those guys. And it was just really far, and my work schedule really wasn't for it because they have class late, and I work really early. And then COVID happened, and so now ever since then, I started going to Kevin Landry's. So.
Right. How far is that from you? I've never been there.
Kevin Landry's?
I've heard from...
About an hour.
Yeah, I've heard from guys like Kincaid, Matt DeCourt, Bill Thompson, that it's definitely worth me driving up there just to check it out. It's probably about an hour from me as well, and I'm in Hamden, Connecticut, which isn't...
It's probably about an hour, yeah. It's about an hour for me. It's a great place to see a lot of guys you're not going to see anywhere else, because they're Kevin students. So it's a great place to see these guys, and he's got some great kids working out of there. And if I can shout out one person that's doing really well that I want to put a spotlight on is Jay Baker. He works down there, and he's great. He's a great kid, and 50 Cal Stevens that works out of there too. He's another one. They're both really, really good. They're really definitely kids to check out as they come up. 50 Cal did the triple threat.
The Paradise Alley.
With Nuka and Sammy.
Nuka, I'm a big fan of, just from the stuff I've seen in Paradise Alley. I actually uploaded that match to my YouTube page because that was one of the few that I actually recorded before my phone died that day. Sure. So, I'm
glad you didn't record mine. Thanks, appreciate it.
The whole day, it was a huge blur. 3 shows. That was the first show I'd been to in 6 months, something like that. So it's like
the only place that was put on shows still was New Jersey. Yeah, and that's a drive.
Oh, really? Yeah, I was like, I was gonna say, because I've seen some things online or Facebook. Some people, I think prior to that, Blood, Sweat, and Tears did in Bridgeport, probably maybe the week.
Yeah, they were doing some stuff, but I know Limitless on Dean was doing a lot of pre-recorded stuff, which was a great idea. I think it's the best idea a company can do right now. If you can't run, find a place, rent it, and put on just record some matches. You can record days worth.
Yeah, I think they were recording out of their dojo, so it was it was just a couple people around, and guys I know you worked with Mike Law, guys like that. I know he made appearances in Paradise Alley.
I never personally worked with him. I know the show I met him at. He worked Richard Holiday. But guys that I know that worked there and did those were Scotty Wilde. He did some stuff there. Kennedy Copeland, I know, had done some stuff there. Trayvon Jordan, I beat him up in a match at PAPW.
I actually watched that one today too. So
I love that match. I go back and watch it, and that's one of my ones that if a booker says, "Hey man, do you have a match?" I'm like, "Oh, watch this one. This one's good."
So one of the things I was gonna say is I've only started getting back into wrestling about 2 years ago because of a chance running into Paul Roma at a gas station, because who I was a big fan of. I've always gone on this podcast and said I was a huge fan of his.
Now, are we talking Four Horsemen Roma or Power and Glory Roma?
Paul Roma.
Just Paul Roma. Okay.
I'm not going to comment on this Four Horsemen. A lot of people give it shit. I loved him in WWF. His WCW run, when he became a Horseman, it was one of those things that was okay. But when him and Orndorff were a tag team, I thought they were a great tag team.
Yeah.
After
I feel like that doesn't get enough recognition. It's always Power and Glory, which was great too, because especially
I think they were
with
great.
LOD. But
yeah, I thought they were a great tag team. So when I met Roma in that gas station, he had said, "Oh, come down. We run shows at the school, yada yada." So it's been 2 years ago. I've missed one show, and that show that you just that like in that 2 years, I've been back. Was the one that you mentioned against Trayvon Jordan was the one show. It's like
right.
Like I try not to miss any of the shows, but it looks like October is going to be very busy. This fall is going to be very busy.
I can always say that PAPW really does treat me really well. So I always appreciate them. That every time I come down, they've always treated me really well. It's one of the best locker rooms I've been in. His students are just great kids, so it's pretty cool stuff. I only learned about it through. I don't even know. Well, I haven't personally worked with him, but RJ Rude and Zane, Insane Rude, they used to work at TIW a lot, and they came from PAPW, so I heard about them a lot through there, and had to make the trip down once I started traveling. I was like, I got to check this place out. And, it's been a good time ever since.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I reconnected with some people I knew that, like Big Daddy. I reconnected with him.
Right. I love Big Daddy, even though he can't call me by the right name. I'm not if you're watching this, Big Daddy, I'm not the Toxic Avenger. I'm the Toxic Terror. Toxic Avenger was a great set of movies, though.
I'm gonna give you a thumbs up on that one. He's a great dude, and I talk to him quite frequently. And one of the things that's like, I ran into him, and then we kind of caught up after years of not seeing him, and then. Needless to say, is like I met a great set of friends through going there. Decor, Thompson, Sign Guy and Sign Kid. It's like I've met Don Kincaid. I can't not mention Don Kincaid.
Absolutely not.
Last
time I used Skype was because of Don Kincaid.
Thank you, Don Kincaid.
Thank you.
Yeah. Actually, I have to say this. Like, I would not know how to work Skype if it wasn't for Don Kincaid. So
the first podcast I ever did was a Skype one, but I hadn't had Skype since I was in like high school. So I just started like, can you guys just call me instead and just like put my picture on the screen?
Right. He was just like, I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. He's like, call me and then I'll save your information. I'm like, all right, whatever.
All right, cool.
Yeah. So then I was like work, and then he like months later when I was starting this whole thing. He taught me how to record on Skype. And I'm like,
nice.
That's fucking easy. I have no idea why I'm such an idiot.
Thank you again, Don Kincaid.
Yeah. So I had him on last week, and that was like one of my favorite.
I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, it was so much fun talking to him for 2 hours. I mean, I literally think I could have gone for like another two.
When I did the interview with him, it was me and my tag team partners, me and Guy Zalowski, and we could have talked. Man, we started getting off, and I'd have to bring it back. And I'm like, all right, so anyway, here's where we were. We only have it because he only does his for like 45 minutes. So I'm like, all right, we got to pull it back. Let's get back to work.
His enthusiasm, his support for independent wrestling in the Northeast is just it's unmatched. And, it's like he constantly promoting through Facebook and all that stuff. And like he travels to so many shows, and he's just
absolutely. I'll plug him once more since this isn't his show. But he really has been like the independent wrestling scene pretty much in that area, in the Connecticut area and some of the Northeast, it really wouldn't be the same without Don Kincaid. So without him, if you're watching, Don, we really appreciate you and everything you do.
The first time, that first Paradise Alley show, he was sitting in front of me, and I was like, how's this guy involved? I was like, I'd see some of the guys come by and like mock him or just shoot out a line, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? It's just some guy. And so,
it's always good to have a fan like that you can work with.
Right. And then over time, over the last 2 years, and I was like, oh, now I get it. It's like he's just a awesome fan.
He's just good at what he does, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And he's just like recording. He records everything, and he shoots
promos. I definitely have some matches that are on YouTube that if he didn't record them, I wouldn't have them. So it's
that's good awesome.
Good that he does it.
That's awesome. So let's talk about. We talked about how you hooked up with Paradise Alley. What else, man? You want to talk about?
I'll talk about anything you want. I'm ready for questions. I figured you'd have some questions to fire off.
Sometimes I'm prepared. Sometimes I'm just like, oh fuck, I'm just gonna shoot or.
Right.
I
mean,
your tag team partner, the last man standing match, Guy Zalowski.
All right. So pretty much when we started training together, and it's mainly because if we're gonna really like just pull back the curtain on all this, we work together, like shoot job. Both work together. And I found out he was a wrestling fan. And I was like, all right, this is cool. But it's like I was his boss at the time. It's like, all right, it's cool, but we're not going to be friends because I'm your boss. And then when I found out about the wrestling school opening, I'm like, or when the wrestling shows were happening, I was like, hey, come on out, watch the wrestling show. And then the school opened up, and I was like, would this be something you're interested in doing? Yeah, let's do it. And he trained the same time I started, and we really started to come up together. And through TIW, which is where we trained, we did this whole gimmick of like me, there was this other kid, Corbin Dane, and this 2 tag team, the Dillon Street Boys, who have worked at PAPW a couple of times, and this big, hulking, massive man called Samuel Bull. That's we all trained together and came up, and the thing in TIW was, okay, we're all going to come in as a faction. Here's all the students, we're coming in as a faction. Kind of like Nexus a little bit, but, you know, a little more organized. And we did the whole thing, so that's kind of where we started as a team, but it was in like a faction. Mm-hmm. And then as we did the whole story and we lost to the big heads of TIW and lost the match or whatever, me and Guy Sadlowski kind of stuck together as to where everyone else kind of went off and did their own thing. Right. And actually the first match after that was an outdoor show in July for TIW, and that was the first match we had together as a tag team. Like we flowed so well, and I was like, we really need to keep this going. But the way the storyline, you know how it is, the way the storylines worked, we didn't do that at first.
Right.
So then we kind of came back in like not fall, like the end of winter, start of spring of like 2019, we started doing the tag team thing, and TIW kept putting us together. So that was great, right? So we're friends, we're tag team partners. So then New York Championship Wrestling started up I was on their very first show, and the booker says to me, all right, you're going to be first match on the very first show. Now, I don't know if or a lot of people know this, but like when it comes to putting together your card, your first match is like almost as important as your main event.
It's very important
because that's the match that has to grab the crowd. So not only am I the first match on the show, we're the first match on the first show, and I'm like, oh my god, there's so much pressure. I mean, we did it. We put on a great match. They love the match. They loved Guy because he comes out to Kenny Rogers, and he comes out with the hippie gimmick and the drink, and they loved him. And I'm like, this is great. This is perfect. So they had us do the tag team there in the next show, and then the booker's like, okay, you're going to turn on him. And I'm like, I'm his tag team partner in another company, right? I'm like, how am I going to hold this together? But yeah, we were able to work it out, and I mean, and you mentioned the Last Man Standing match. That was the blow off of a year-long feud. I'm barely a year and a half into wrestling right now, and a company, not just the company gives us a year-long feud, but the crowd was into it. The crowd loved it. Right. And when I had started with this company, the booker had said to me, he's like, all right, here's what's going to happen. Here's what I want. You're going to tag team with this guy, and you and Guy are going to feud. I said, cool, love it. He's like, what do you want to do? And I said, I want your crowd to hate me. I want to be the biggest heel. You want me to come as a heel? I want to be the biggest heel in the company. And I like to call this, it's like one of my favorite moments ever in my career so far, was after we did the big, oh my God, shock heel turn. That the very next show, my music hit, and I wasn't even out the curtain yet. And the crowd was already erupted in booing. And I'm like, I had to try not to smile when I'm out there being rude to fans, because I'm like, this is one of my favorite moments of my career right here, that people don't even like me. I'm not even out there yet, and they already hate me. I'm like, this is great. But I always want to thank NYCW for giving us that opportunity to let us run this feud for a whole year, and the crowd loved it. They loved us more than any other feud that was going on in the company. It was awesome.
They seem like they're a really good company. I've yet to really. I have not gone out to see them because I don't.
It's a long way. It's a long way.
Where do they run? Where do they run
like
shows?
Central New York.
Oh God.
So like far. The Utica and like they're mostly all in Utica. Every now and then they do shows at the Clinton Arena, which is Clinton, New York. But it's a drive. So for you guys, it's an even farther drive. It's pretty.
I think the furthest I've driven for a show was like an hour in the last couple years. I mean, outside of I think I went to WrestleMania last year, which was just a fucking dreadful fucking day in itself. I sat there for 8 hours in the cold. In April, mind you. You didn't think it would be as cold as it was.
Yeah, you never know.
you couldn't see the fucking ring. I mean, you saw the shadows of a ring, but what was happening in the ring?
Were you guys really far up? Was that why?
That's the thing. We weren't. I mean, you'd think we weren't that far up, but they fit like 90,000 fucking people in this arena. And that's why I love independent wrestling. Basically,
right there.
You're right there. I could sit in the front row. I could sit in the fucking last row, and I could still see everything perfectly.
Right.
And you get to chill with the dudes afterwards,
Especially places like alley fights and like TOS, where it's like you're there. I mean, the bigger PWG shows, they got the guardrails, but it's like alley fights and TOS, you're right there. And don't get me wrong, I've seen fans do things they shouldn't do at shows. Quick shot was I was at a World of Hurt show, and they were running a little tour through Vermont, and it was the same situation, no guardrails or nothing, and it was Shane Alden and Sergeant Fury. And Sergeant Fury takes the chair and goes to hit Shane Alden with it, and a fan grabbed the chair as he was going to get it. And I'm like, oh my God, like Sergeant Fury spit on him. And I was like, he deserved it, but what a terrible idea. The guy was in a full Batman costume. I kid you not, a full Batman costume. So he comes in the back, and Fury's like, I just spit on Batman. I can't believe I just spit on Batman.
Not to sound ridiculous.
Fans, don't interfere with the show.
I'm still a fan at heart, but there's a lot of crazy fans when you go to wrestling shows. There is, and then some of them. Actually, one of the alley fights that one day, the last show, it appeared that someone was trying to get involved. Which I thought was
that, which is unfortunate.
I was standing by the door, and then someone, I don't remember who exactly, was going under the ring grabbing a chair, and then a fan reached up and tried to grab it, and then Nick Payne was like, oh, and he ran over. He's like, you cannot do that.
Absolutely not. Especially now. You shouldn't even be getting that close to the people.
Exactly. And I was like, oh my God, this lady's going to fucking go after. I don't even remember who it was, actually. I just remember she was wearing a Dirtbag Dan shirt. That's what I do remember. But
Get your fans under control, Dan. Come on, man. Jeez. The worst I saw at one of our shows was TIW did one, and there was this really hated faction head up by High Voltage Omar, so a lot of credit goes to him.
I know
the Dignified, and they did a really dirty. They did the old Dusty spot where the Stepdads were the tag team they were facing, and they did the Dusty spot with the brass knucks under Radley Belmont's newspaper. You thought the Stepdads won, and then won the titles, and then it was, oh no, just kidding. They cheated, and they don't win it. And fans started jumping our rails to try and get in the ring and go after the Dignified. God. Oh man, I'm like, no, can't do that. Not allowed.
I have seen several. I've seen Balls Mahoney get into a fight in an indie show in like some little hall, probably the size of my living room, to be honest with you. Like, I'm going back probably 15 years ago or so, and it was just like some fan like was heckling them so bad he actually just went up to the guy and a brawl broke out, and I'm sitting there like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah, right. Well, why did he go after him? I get it's Balls Mahoney. It's an indie show 15 years ago. Don't attack the fan. Like, come on.
Yeah.
My only issue is when they get like really like, if they get really aggressive and inappropriate, then you gotta have a problem with it.
Right. I think it was definitely way more was said that probably didn't pick up on, but at that time period, but it was quite comical nonetheless. But the show ended short, needless to say. So
anyway, to backtrack though, yes, NYCW is a great company. They're still pretty fresh. They only started in October 2018, but they're definitely grinding the wheels and really grinding the gears and really getting content out and like they're bringing in all sorts of guys to do work that you don't generally see most places. So it's good to see. Hopefully when things pick back up. I know New York's really tough right now with restrictions and all that, so God knows when they'll pick back up again. So it'll be good to get back there. I haven't been there since. I didn't do anything in 2020 there with their shows. The last show there for me was December of 2019. So it'd be nice to finally get back there. Just dates getting all screwed up and all that. So
yeah. So I mean, it's been really ridiculous. Where else have you worked outside of the 2 or 3 promotions that we mentioned? I know
give you the whole resume. I'll give you the whole resume.
I know you worked with Kevin Landry. You trained with Kevin Landry currently, correct?
Yes.
I
started with TIW, Truly Independent Wrestling, and my trainer, which is good on my trainer, CJ Scott, was very adamant. Work for us for a year before you start traveling. Really get your feet wet and really get into the business first before you go somewhere else. And then NYCW, the booker for NYCW was actually a commentator for TIW, so that's why we were able to kind of branch out there first, because we already knew who he was. So shortly after the end of 2018, I was like, well, now I want to travel, because now I've hit my full year of actually wrestling on live shows. My first live match was in January 2018, like on a show.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So Bob Evans, Bruno Bob Evans, was running Eastern Pro Wrestling at the time, EPW, and they had a show in Rhode Island. It was my first time in Rhode Island, and I drove out there, and I brought the Dillon Street Boys with me, because there was a Battle Royal or a Rumble match. So I'm like, oh man, I'll come down and check it out. Well, it turns out Bob was like, hey, you're going to do a 6-man tag. Go out there. You're going to do a match right now. I'm like, okay. So, unfortunately, after that, EPW didn't really do anything.
Right.
But that was actually the first time I met Nathaniel Carr. I know he works in Connecticut a lot. So that was the first time
I know the name. Yep.
Yeah. And that was a good time. I wish they could have kept going, but, things happen. Shortly after that, I always credit High Voltage Omar. Brought me down to TOS. I was like, here, come check this out. I could probably get you on. And I had a great time. Again, that's another locker room. Great guy. Slick Wagner Brown. Great guy. Love him.
He's a great guy, yeah.
And then, PAW shortly came after that, because I was in Connecticut. And I was just trying to think of the order in which I got into these companies. And then, you know what it was June was Immortal Championship Wrestling was when I first showed up there. Mm-hmm. And they're another one. I can't say enough good things about some of these companies. Like,
I've definitely watched them a few times. I've seen a couple.
Oh yeah, they have great
online.
They put on such a fantastic show. They do such a great job at their shows. And I showed up there, and I did same thing. I did a battle royal with them, and he was like, "I definitely want to bring you back. Like, let's do this again." And I worked consistently for them all the way through until everything stopped running.
Right.
Jeez, where else? No, and actually, to plug myself, I was also their 2019 Breakout Star of the Year. So, anyway, so I have since then. So those were like the big companies that I worked for all the time: TIW, NYCW, TOS, PAPW, and Immortals. That was like the big 6 that I always worked for. And then the Kevin Landry School started doing the Shut Up and Wrestles. So I started being a regular there, because I'm like, that's so close to home. I have to go. I got to check this out. But I've made an appearance at World of Hurt, which is way out, almost in Vermont, pretty much. It's in New York, but it's basically in Vermont. So I made an appearance there, and I've also made an appearance at Excite Championship Wrestling, or Excite Pro Wrestling. Either way, it's Excite is what they mainly go by, and that's out way out in Central New York. Way out. I mean, it's nothing but farms the whole ride. I thought I was lost.
Oh, my God.
And but that was another great one, and thankfully Bob Evans was the one who introduced me to them and got me there. And but other than that, the most recent has been XWA. I put my foot in the door at XWA. I've done one show there. I'm actually going there again this Thursday Night Throwdown. Danny Adam will be at XWA.
It's 2 days from now.
That is 2 days from now. That's right. I haven't promoted it yet, but I'm getting there. That'll be tomorrow.
Get to it. Yeah.
I will promote it. So yeah. So I mean, that's pretty much the whole resume right there of where I've worked or currently are working.
XWA seems like a really good promotion. I've seen them. They do have some content on a fight, the Abs fight.
I believe that's mostly their big shows. Like they run the Thursday night shows all the time, but it's like the big shows I see on there all the time.
Yeah, and I think they have uploaded some of their smaller shows on like YouTube, maybe, or at least some of the matches, at least.
Yeah.
So I have seen them, and that's actually probably, like I said, Shut Up and Wrestle, probably that area of Rhode Island it is, right? It's probably about the same distance.
Well, Shut Up and Wrestle's in Holyoke, Mass. I don't know.
It's about an hour.
I don't know how far. Yeah, I don't know how far.
It's about an hour. I think the XWA is about an hour and 15. Yeah. So nothing crazy, but that's another one. Like weeknights are rough, man. I gotta be at work at 7 o'clock.
I know. I lucked out with my job now that I'm like, oh hey, can I have Thursday night off? Like I want to go watch this show. And it's a great place. The first thing I felt was I walked in, and it's just a great setup. It's such a good. They got the lights over the ring. They got the big entryway. I'm like, this is cool. And Jose Perez was one of the first guys I met. And
it looks very professional, very professional and ready for TV. And the talent that they've had walk through into that ring. They've had so many. Dustin Rhodes was there, Yeah,
they have all the pictures of their ex-champions on the wall, and Rhino's on there.
Oh wow!
And I can't think of off the top of my head. I have to see when I go again this Thursday. I'll have to remember. But yeah, they've had a lot of great names in there.
I just spoke with him recently. Rhino actually is supposed to come on at some point. Whatever.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah, he seems like a pretty cool dude. You know.
Yeah, I never personally met him. A friend of mine lived out in Denver for a little while.
Yeah.
So he met him, and he met him at a Home Depot. And the only thing he had to say to me, he was like, "Oh, I met Rhino the other day at Home Depot." I said, "Oh, that's cool." I said, "What was he like?" He was like, "He was short." And I was like,
pretty much
don't tell him that because he can still kick your ass.
He's a big guy. He's kind of badass, you know. Like
absolutely.
He might be smaller than you that way, but not that way.
Absolutely.
You know. So you had mentioned a couple times you don't even really watch the professional wrestling business today.
It's not like it's on purpose or anything. It's just
people
on the network, and it's the one of the other reasons too that I don't watch it, and this comes from not just being in training at a school, but working at schools so much as I get a lot of people that come in. Oh, I saw this over the weekend on AEW or on Raw, and I want to try this. And I'm like, why don't you try something yourself? Come up with something new. Like take what that is and do it yourself. Right. I won't name names, but I had a kid come in that was training at TIW, and he's like, "Oh, this was around like when Buddy Murphy was really starting to get big on WWE."
I love that guy,
and he was like, he's like that move Buddy Murphy does, the Murphy's Law. I want to start doing that. And I said, "Is it going to be your finisher?" No, just a regular move. I said, "You're not going to do a big guy on TV's finisher as a regular move." I said, "That makes you a jerk." It's like, it doesn't work that way.
That's the problem. I'm thinking, like I said, I'm not in the business anyway. I'm just some guy with a podcast or YouTube channel, whatever. So like, I feel bad kind of spitting facts, I guess, would be about certain things like that, mentioning things like that. But it's true. There's a lot of indie guys that see stuff on TV and say, "Hey, I'm going to do that," without blatantly just ripping it off, or even their freaking gimmick. You know what I mean?
Right. Before AEW got Dynamite, we always made the joke every time there was like an AEW pay-per-view. We're always like, "All right, so how many times we're going to see that spot in the Indies this weekend?" Like,
well, I always make the joke that by the second match, I've seen 367 super kicks. You know, so
I'm sorry, Shawn Michaels. I'm sorry. Yeah, but it's a sidekick. What do you want me to do? I can't not do it.
Right, but I mean, like,
slap the thigh though. If it makes you feel any better.
But it's that. The knee slapper, it's just Canadian Destroyer is also one of the most overused maneuvers.
That's getting old. That's one. I think back to when I first saw that move, Petey Williams, and I was like, that, and it was his finisher. That was it. He hit that move and it was over, and now it's a regular move. And I'm like,
guys.
First of all, it's a pile driver. Come on.
Right. I mean, it's an assisted pile driver. Really, you need the guy to
still
throw
you on your head.
Right.
Forget it. You're going to insult Jerry Lawler by doing that.
You got guys like legends like Dustin Rhodes and Ricky Morton doing the Canadian Destroyer now. It's like, it's like, I guess they're trying to keep themselves.
I can't help but pop a little though when I see guys like that do it though. I'm like, oh man, that's awesome.
I mean, I think Dustin Rhodes is like really improved in ever since he joined AEW. I'm going to say that.
Absolutely.
Like, because I think that there's been times in his career he was stuck in a mode. And since he's joined AEW, he's put on some phenomenal matches, especially the one, and I mentioned this a couple times on here with him and Cody, where there was like a bloodbath. And I fucking love that match.
The storytelling behind it too is really just amazing. So it was definitely one of his best matches. And I mean, it's because the Goldust gimmick came out in a time where people made fun of it. They didn't take it seriously, and I'm like, man, Dustin, it's like, does everybody forget this is Dusty Rhodes' kid? Like,
no, I mean, I always was kind of like, that gimmick, because I hated over-the-top gimmicks or gimmicks that were not, the gimmicks that were not realistic by any means. You know what I mean? It's just like, I always hated that growing up, and now as a kid, I've grown to appreciate Dustin's work as Goldust.
Absolutely.
I've come around, especially like. Yeah, there was times in his career where he did the stuttering gimmick after he got electrocuted. I thought it was hilarious, but he always put on like really good matches, though. That's the thing that I guess overall is the most important.
Absolutely.
So one of the other questions, I think you kind of basically touched upon it a little bit. Is like, how'd you hook up with Brutal Bob Evans? How'd you hook up with that guy?
Brutal Bob was he back in March of 2018, I was still reffing for TIW, but it was, you know, our gimmick.
Is that how you started out there, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you know, we wanted to, as the students, we wanted to still be involved in the show. So it was
Right.
like, oh, well, I'll be a referee, and like it was great. I loved being a referee. And God forbid the day ever comes where I've got to stop wrestling, I will definitely still be a referee because it's
that's awesome.
It's awesome. I love doing it, and it was a lot of fun. But we were still, you know, we were starting to feed the gimmick of our little faction coming in and everything like that. So Brutal Bob came in and did a seminar, and now I will be 100% honest. I didn't know who the hell he was. I was like, who is Bob Evans? I don't know this guy. So I started going back and watching like Ring of Honor matches with you know, Tough Guy Inc. and him, and I was like, oh, okay, all right, now I know who this guy is. I think I saw a match where it was him and somebody else against like the Radicals on like a Sunday Night Heat or something. It was just like, you know, it was just a job out match, but
yeah, I did go back and see a work with him. I think maybe about the time that you teamed with him, maybe that I went, you know, because I hadn't seen him for a number of years. I remember him back in the earlier 2000s, like NECW, and I kind of remember a couple WWE job matches here and there on like Velocity or some bullshit. But yeah, like I do remember, and then I watched back and I was like, holy shit, like I couldn't believe, like, you know, it just took me back, like I couldn't remember it. And once I saw it, I was like, oh my god, that really was him, you know, kind of a thing.
So he came in and did the seminar, and I will 100% say this is one of the best seminars I've ever done. I've done a few. I won't say I've done a lot of seminars, but I've done a few. Yeah, his is one of the best. Extremely informative. A lot of like what the business is about. Like, yeah, we did some wrestling stuff, but it was a lot of business stuff. I'm like, this is good to know. Good to know. And you know, that's what got me going out to his company, EPW, and then. You know, he got brought back to TIW quite a few times, and they used him quite a few times. So, and then, like I said, then I went out to Excite, another seminar, worked with him again. He came down and did Nunzio was supposed to do a seminar at TIW. Unfortunately, he ended up having to show up late. So Bob did another one. Just a lot of Bob seminars. And so thankfully, TIW and the bookers there were fortunate enough to just say, they were like, you know what? We're going to bring Bob in again, and you know what? You get to work him. It's your match. And I was like, oh, this is my first name. Holy shit. Like, it was awesome. And it was a great time. It was a whole different experience from what I've ever done before. So it was great. It was awesome.
I know you said that was your first name.
Yeah.
Quote unquote. But what other names have you worked with him? Not to make it sound as lame as that.
I haven't worked with. I mean, he's the only name I've actually worked a match with.
Right.
For when it comes to bigger guys in the indies, I mean, I've definitely shared the ring and worked spots with guys like Bobby Ocean.
Oh,
you know. Okay. Who else was I in a match with? I did a match with Slade. Slade's gotten pretty huge on the indies lately, which I love Slade. And I did a match with him, so that was really cool. I've reffed matches with Joey Mercury. I've reffed matches with. Yeah, I know.
No, I have a funny story about that guy. That guy's I tried to get him on the podcast.
Let me hear it.
I've tried to get him on the podcast before, but he was the biggest asshole about it.
Good. So I'm glad that we can say that. He was a dick.
Yeah.
I reffed the match, and he was a dick. He did a shoot. He took the mic and started shooting on the mic, and I'm looking down at the guy he's working. I'm like, is this supposed to be happening right now?
He was during just the correspondence, he was the most unpleasant human being. Basically, he told us if we don't have the same numbers as like somebody like Joe Rogan, he was never going to come on our show. He was just a dick and insulting.
Well, sorry, dude, I'm not going to do DMT on air. What do you want me to do?
Yeah, I'm like, first off, you don't really have a career right now, so it's like not to be.
Maybe you should have put your hands up with the ladder game at your face.
That's the second time somebody made that joke when I mentioned this.
All right. Anyway, I'm not here to throw heat. That was bad.
No. But there is funny. It's like
Go ahead. I'm sorry. No, you're still doing
I do remember him coming up before he was even anybody like on the indies in Northeast wrestling. So I'll just remember that. So one of the things I just gotta say, not to insult, but he forgot his roots, and that's the one thing that I always hate about people is that when they forget their roots. But not looking to talk shit any longer.
Yeah.
So
I got to ref Ricky Reyes. Cortez Castro on AEW. Ricky Reyes is great, awesome guy. But I mean, like I said, it's less working names and more just names I've met through locker rooms and things like that.
Right.
I met Farouk, which was great. I think I was just a little starstruck at the time because he's awesome.
Oh, I do.
What a great guy.
That does happen to me. Starstruck.
It doesn't ever happen. Like, I feel so stupid about it.
You're in a different level.
This is Farouk.
You're in a different level than I am, I guess. You're one of the workers, where I'm just some guy. Right. It's like, it does happen on occasion. It's like I said, when Roma, with the first time I ever met Roma, that happened to me because it was like I grew up watching him. Right. Now I see him at every show. He's just some guy. He's the guy. So it's like it's like he's the guy, and I say, hey, what's up, and that's it. But like, there's definitely guys that I run into. I'm like, oh my god, but I'm also on the level. I'm pretty cool. I just met Tommy Rich recently. And a couple other guys. It was just
right. I don't know. It's like when it came to music and I'd go to concerts and stuff, I'd meet bands and I'm like, oh, whatever. Me and George Corpse Grinder from Cannibal Corpse, we talked about wrestling in World of Warcraft for 3 hours one time outside of a show, and he loved it. Right. And I was like, I can't talk to wrestlers the same way. What happened to me?
I'm a little bit. Certain people I'm more relaxed with, and other times I think it's just the setting. Sometimes I'll flip out like. Other times I'll just be like, I don't know if you've ever heard Husker Du, another punk band. One of the guys who was pretty popular, he never toured ever, and then decided to start touring again about 3 years before his death. He played Cafe 9 in New Haven, Connecticut. Next thing you know, I'm just sitting outside after the show talking to him for about 2 fucking hours about life and music, and I was talking to somebody that's so influential musically on me, and I'm just having a great fucking time here, just chilling with him. Yeah. He signed my fucking records, and we just chat the shit about music or life. It was awesome. But other times I'll just freak out. But whatever.
Oh yeah. No. I think it's when it comes to the workers, especially when you're meeting guys from like the Attitude Era was like obviously the area I grew up with. Yeah. So it's like meeting guys like him and like Billy Gunn when I was first going to the Immortal show before I started working for them. Mm-hmm. A friend of mine and a guy who kind of helped train me, and I've worked with a lot, Tyler Vincent, who worked out in the New York area a lot. He worked Billy Gunn, and like I went into the locker room, like I don't even know what to say to this guy, so I'm just gonna walk away. But I think it's because I don't want to be like, oh, I'm a mark, let me talk to you and get pictures taken with you. I'm like, no, I don't want to be that.
I got called a mark recently. I try not to be, it's like I really try hard to be, but it's like, Justin Credible was from Waterbury. It's about 10 minutes from my house.
Right.
Apparently he needed a ride for an autograph signing, which I went to, and they're like, oh, he needs a ride. You want to pick him up? I'm like, sure, why not? And then it was just like,
sure, whatever.
You better not mark out. And I'm like, why the fuck would I mark out? I was like, first off, I've been interacted with him like a million times. So it's like, he knows who I am if you ask him, but then it's just like, never mind, I'm not sending you. All right, whatever. It's like, whatever. It's like, whatever. And so it's just like, it was like one of those, like, you're irritating me at this point. Like, just so.
So when at the Immortal Championship Wrestling show in September of 2019, the name they got for the show was Richard Holiday worked, and Paul Roma was there. That was their okay, Paul Roma's gonna be the signing, yada yada yada. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, this is cool. I see Roma all the time because of PAPW. And even he was surprised when he saw me. He's like, what are you doing here? I'm like, I work for this company. Oh. And so, when he first shows up, a lot of people come to me like, oh, it's great to meet you. It's awesome to meet you. This is Paul Roma. I'm like, yeah, so what? I see him all the time. I see him like once. I see him like twice a week, twice a month now because I work PAPW so often. And like they put my merch table is right next to it. Oh, well, there.
Sorry, I grabbed the wire. My uncle actually grew up like they were friends growing up, so that's the other thing. It's like because he grew up in Bridgeport. And I was a little kid. I had a little autographed card of Paul Roma, and I was like, I had it for many years. I think when I divorced my first wife, it went missing, of course. But yeah.
But yeah, they like set up my merch table right next to his, and like when people would come up and like freak out, I'd always make the joke when people were like, "Oh, it's Paul Roma," and he'd always hear me over next to him. I'm like, "Who cares?" Like, he'd just laugh.
So out of all the people that I've met, I don't have any I have boxes of autographs. I don't have a Roma because I feel so awkward about asking him for an autograph.
Right, it's so weird.
Now that it's like I kind of know him on a small level, but it's like I feel awkward. Hey, can I get a picture with you? Right. So it's so weird, but it is what it is. Maybe one day. So
someday.
So what else is in store for you for the rest of the year coming up? Are you working the Paradise Alley shows coming up in October?
I'm not currently on the ones in October. I will likely be at one of them. I will probably be there for one of them. There's really not a lot going on right now. Like I said, I'll try to get down to XWA kind of often, with everything going on. I just want to be careful health-wise, you know what I mean? I work a job, I have a girlfriend, I don't want to be getting anybody sick. So, like, I'm going to try to go down there, every other week, or at least every couple of weeks I'll try to go down there. Yeah. I don't know if it's been advertised yet, but PAPW might be doing something in November. I know I'm set for that.
They mentioned something on Facebook about. I think they added the event, but I don't know what that.
Wanted to make sure I wasn't just like throwing things out there that aren't announced yet. But I think they're doing something in November. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be at that. Right. And then other than that, it's just going to be see what I can do. Shut Up and Wrestle might start up again soon. There's no guarantees. We've kind of talked about it and toyed with it a little bit, but it's still so. As of right now, it's just going to be. I got to make my way down to Jersey apparently. Because that's where all the shows are right now. It's New Jersey. Who would have thought New Jersey would be the cleanest state in America right now?
I've always called that the armpit of America. The cesspool.
And this is nothing against New Jersey, especially if I start going down there for shows. But I went down there once for a Dropkick Depression show. And, man, they weren't kidding. It really smells down there all the time. Does. But everywhere I got out of my car, because I had to go to the Quick Stop. You can't go to Jersey and not go to the Quick Stop. And I had to go to the, like the Kevin Smith store that they had. But it's like, man, everywhere I got out smelled.
As stereotypical as all that stuff is that we mentioned, but it is a great place. There's so much to do there. But you get lost in a matter of seconds. If you take a wrong turn, you're lost forever. Like, we used to travel there. Me and my buddies used to travel there for wrestling a lot when we were younger. Between ECW, Indies, NWA shows in the 1990s. Like, it was just, we'd always get lost. And for some reason, on the way back, we'd always get even lost again. And then we'd, show up at like 2, 3, 4 in the morning because we just got lost. So it's just, it was such a confusing state.
Not to insult Connecticut now, but when I used to go to like the Webster and stuff a lot for shows, man, it's just one-way streets down there. How do you guys find anything? Like, it's just nothing but one-ways. I mean, it's the same as Boston, but still.
That's about 45 minutes from me, the Webster. Hartford, yeah. And my sister-in-law owns a building around the corner where she rents out. And I went there one day to help her clean it out. And literally, I was like, all right, I'm taking a break. I went to go get something to eat. And I was right in front of the Webster. And I was like, Jesus Christ, I don't ever remember this part of the city looking like such a shithole. So it's gone downhill. It's gone downhill a number of years. Like, I got, I've heard stories of bands getting their vans broken into over the years.
Oh, yeah.
When I was going out there on a regular basis, I was like, that shit wasn't happening as much. You know what I mean? It's like, this is weird. So it's like that area of town. And literally, I went to like a McDonald's drive-thru. You always get panhandlers, and the guy would not walk away from my car after I said no, and he waited and followed my car. I'm like, dude, I said no. It was
just leave me alone.
Yeah, I was like, and I got back, and I'm like, the people that are begging here are way different than the ones in New Haven because these guys don't take no for an answer. I was like,
the ones here aren't. If it makes you feel better, the ones here aren't any better. So
yeah.
My last experience was who did we go see? It was the Webster Underground. I was saying I don't mean to rattle off bands that probably no one's ever heard of, but I'm about to. It was like Reigns of Saturn and Fallujah and a few other bands down there, and they had a little smoking area. They had a little smoking area outside. I mean, they're not great. I'm not going to come on here and shit talk about bands, but I used to like them. Not a huge fan anymore.
Yeah.
They got famous off internet memes. That's pretty much it. So like they had a little area outside for like smokers, and my buddy that I was with smoked at the time. So I was like, we'll go outside. And it was just people just like hanging out outside. We're just not the best looking people. They had, same thing, begging for stuff. I'm like, can we just go back inside? I don't even smoke. Like.
Yeah, man. It's like it's tough going to like it always seems like the best rock clubs are in the shittiest towns or the shittiest areas of a shitty town.
The Palladium wasn't bad, like in Worcester where it was, but if you went like a mile in either direction, it was forget it. It was like we got lost once going home, and I'm like, dude, I don't want to get out of the car. Like,
I have not been up to Worcester in many years, especially for a show. It's like. Right. Anytime I've been to a show these days, it's New Haven or what's the other place called? Providence. Because Providence
takes a lot from you guys. Yeah,
it's about an hour. They get a a lot of really great shows. They have the Strand there, but I think that changed names. I don't fucking know.
Right.
But
I haven't been to Rhode Island in a while. I went there for something. I'm trying to remember. It was something what the hell was the venue? I can't remember the name of the venue. I don't even think it's open anymore, so I wouldn't even try.
It's a college town, so like all the warmer months, everything is fucking closed. So
yeah,
it's like, and then it's like that one band that'll bring everybody in just for that one night. It's like, so it's really fucking awkward.
But you mentioned what was we had, for anyone who's watching now, we had talked a couple minutes before we started. You mentioned what was the club called in Connecticut that you used to work at?
Oh, the Outer Space.
Outer Space, yeah. Actually, that was probably the last concert I went to. I will say this, unfortunately, if we're gonna get into my background a little bit since we're on here.
Go for it, man.
Before I started wrestling, especially 2008, 2010 and 12, like. I was really big into and I still am really big into extreme metal, death metal, and stuff like that. And it's like I lived at the Palladium in Worcester in 2008. I was there once, twice a month for shows on the regular, mainly because I lived at home and had a full-time job.
That's the best time, right?
No responsibilities. Yeah,
yeah, right.
Let's throw my money away at concerts. All the band merch I've wasted money on that I can't fit into anymore. So. Dude, it's ridiculous. Now it's wrestling merch.
Same here. For me.
So, I was really into the metal scene, and as I noticed that as I started wrestling, it's not that it went away, it's just I was so busy with wrestling. Friends were like, hey man, this show's coming up, you want to go? I'm like, I have a show coming up. Well, I can't. I'm sorry. I have wrestling that day. I can't go.
Right.
So I specifically make sure that every now and then I take time off, and I'm like, guys, hey, I can't wrestle this show. I really want to go to this instead. Just for myself, And the last one I went to was at the Outer Space, and definitely two of my favorite bands, and a band I can't plug enough, which is, sorry fans, a lot of you probably aren't going to be into them, is Fit for an Autopsy. The bassist is a buddy of mine, and he's a great guy, and they just put out really good music, and it was them, and another band I really like, Rivers of Nihil, and it was a cool venue. I liked that venue. Right. It was a really cool place. It's not a bad place, and the sound was great. So
yeah, the sound was fucking awesome. I did a variety of positions there, from security to kitchen to security again, whatever, and it's just the crowds that would come in there. Obviously, it's a lot of that stuff you're mentioning didn't always play there.
Right.
But it's when it did, it drew in a really good fucking crowd, because they played a lot of singer-songwriter, Americana, all that kind of hippy-dippy shit. But it's and then they had Bluegrass Mondays, which is
I remember when what the hell's the name of the band? Municipal Waste played Worcester one time, and they were playing the Palladium, and across the street, the DCU Center was it wasn't Grateful Dead, but it was this big Grateful Dead tribute band. Man, Municipal Waste could not let it go. Just all the jokes about hippies and the Grateful Dead.
I can't.
Man.
If anybody knows me, it's one band I can't stand is fucking Grateful Dead. It's just and their fans. It's just that hippie shit is just. I know it's I'm a pretty peace loving guy myself, Right. But it's just the whole fan base. It's just it's they're hipsters before there was such a thing as hipsters.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? They're fucking annoying.
If you say you don't listen to the Dead or Jerry Lewis, what's wrong with you, man? It's Beatles fans. It's I don't listen to the Beatles. What do you mean? They started rock music. I'm stop it. Stop.
First off, no, the blues started rock music. I'll tell you that. But it's not that I don't respect the Beatles. I'm just not a fan of theirs. You know what I mean? It's just they've got some
music. Absolutely, but I'm just not a fan.
They've got some good songs, but I don't think they're nearly as good as the universe makes them.
Absolutely.
It's they're and Jericho actually, he pissed me off one night on AEW. They were in Memphis, and he was something, the Beatles were better than Elvis, and I was just I yelled at the TV. I said, that's not fucking true. I said, Elvis is way better than the Beatles.
Listen, man, he's just trying to get heat.
Right, yeah.
And he's doing
apparently,
it.
It worked because I yelled at my TV. But,
fantastic.
Little known fact is that Elvis was my first musical obsession as a little kid. So I was I've been an Elvis fan since I was a kid.
Plus, if we're going to talk British invasion, I don't want to hear about the Beatles. I want to hear about Judas Priest. So, let's be real here.
One of the greatest live concerts I've ever seen.
I've never seen them, unfortunately. I will say that. I missed a chance to see them in March. I can't remember what happened. Not this past March before that. I can't remember what happened. I just never could make it out to the show, and I kick myself every time. I'm like, man, I should have just gone. Dude, I could have seen Judas Priest live.
The last time I saw them, it was Anthrax. Again, this time Joey Belladonna singing for Anthrax.
Okay,
again.
right.
he had already reunited. The first time that I mentioned earlier was John Bush from Armored Saint. But this time, Joey Belladonna had already been back in the group for a while, and then Hatebreed opened up the show. So, and mind you, this is just.
I know you're from Connecticut, but I'm just not.
Yeah.
I'm just not a fan of Hatebreed.
I'm so glad you
mainly because Jamie Jost is a douche, man. I don't want to remind me of Outer Space because I don't want to forget what I was going to say about that place. But I remember a buddy of mine went to go see Hatebreed, and he was in a band too, and like he played a lot of like hardcore music too. And like he came up to Jamie and talked to him at the merch table, and he was like, "Oh man, you guys had a great set. You guys did awesome. It was great." And Jamie just kind of looked at him and was like, "Yeah, if you're not going to buy any merch, get out of here." And I'm like,
that's
man,
pretty. I find that really bizarre because I mean I knew Jamie, but I'm going back 30 years before Hatebreed was even a thing.
Right.
So I kind of wondered he was in a different band, and I don't even know if he'd remember me 30 years later, to be honest with you. But he was always super nice to me, and he owned this little. He owned like a record store / clothing store in the middle of like Wallingford, Connecticut at one point that lasted like 2 months, and he was always nice, but he's always one of those guys that his personality takes over, and he's just.
We all know some people like that. I know how that can be.
Yeah, he's like really over the top and like really into his thing, which is Hatebreed and promoting. And I think I find this now that he's just a gigantic poser. So
I'm just not a fan. I'm just like whatever. Like,
yeah,
Hatebreed was cool when I was like 17, and now I'm like, oh, I found better music. Sorry, Hatebreed. Like, I'd rather listen to Acacia Strain than Hatebreed. Sorry, dude.
Yeah, there's so many people in Connecticut because they're from Connecticut that they think they're the greatest thing on earth. I'm like, no. Like, they're mediocre at best.
Let me tell you about a Connecticut show I went to, and this goes back to the Outer Space. Now, the thing I liked was the crowd was great. The crowd was great at the Outer Space. I mean, it's a deathcore death metal show. People are moshing, and I'm that guy. Sorry, guys, you're not gonna like me at shows. I'm the karate guy that everybody hates, but I'm generally pretty nice. You know what I mean? The cool thing about Worcester that taught me with music and moshing is you be respectful to each other. So if someone gets too close to me, I'm not gonna punch you in the face. I'm not a dick. I may have done this in Connecticut, but it wasn't on purpose. It's because everyone kept trying to knock me over. So sorry, dude. I'm going to kick you in the head. Anyway, to get away from that, I went to a place, and I don't even know what part of Connecticut it was in, but it was called, this was years ago, it was called Leah's Pizza. It was this little place. And
I know the place you're talking about.
It closed.
Yes, I know.
And here's why. I think this is why. I could be wrong. So I went down there, and it was like a super like underground deathcore show. Like Explosive Distortions.
Yes.
And Partisan Turbine, bands that were deathcore before deathcore was a thing.
Yeah.
It got real popular. And, I had gone to plenty of shows, and to me, New York was always oh, man, this place is violent. I got to be careful. No, man, New York didn't have anything on Leah's Pizza because these dudes broke out like someone got smashed with a pipe, someone got stabbed. I'm like, what is going on? And the next thing you know, I found out like months later the place closed, and I was like, it was probably because of that show.
No, they used to book a lot of like punk and hardcore shows. I'm trying to think. I'm looking it up right now. So like I remember, I just remember it being. I think that might have been in Bridgeport if I'm not mistaken.
I wasn't even driving at the time. Like my buddy drove me down, and it was like, yeah, let's go check this out. Like Partisan Turbine is really cool. I was like, yeah, they're really cool. Check this out. Nah, man, that place got wild.
Yeah, Monroe, Connecticut, which is not too far from here. But either way, it's probably like 40 minutes at the most. But yeah, I remember that place altogether. Like I just remember hearing about tons of punk shows, and I'm like, why ain't a fucking pizza place? Like, and then eventually
they had like a small little room. That's all it was. Like there was a pizza place,
they had
an
extra room.
And don't get me wrong, the sound was great because you got the speakers just hitting off the wall. It's fantastic. I love it. Sounds awesome. But man, there used to be
another really interesting place in Meriden, Connecticut. Hell, I don't even remember the name. And Jamie Josta was the booker at this venue. Yeah. Some death metal show. Mortician played there. Do you remember those guys?
Oh, I remember them. They made a comeback. Well, not like a comeback music wise, but just all of a sudden all these like true cult hipster like death metal elitists like love Mortician, and then like all these hardcore kids suddenly come out and love Mortician. I'm like,
would you remember them? The original.
They're okay.
Word? It's just the guy, the guitar player / singer, and then there's a bass player, but then you use a drum machine. Do you remember this at all? Like,
oh yeah. So, I've seen plenty of things with drum machines, and we'll come back to that. But go ahead.
I used to see this guy at horror movie conventions. I'm a huge horror fan, and the guy always seemed really fucking weird. And then I found out who he was, and I went to this show. literally this club, the walls were painted black. It looked like something out of a movie. Like you walk into this club, you're not leaving kind of a fucking setting. It's just like, I was like,
I'm about to be on an episode of CSI.
Yeah, I was like, this is the weirdest fucking setting. And then that band God Forbid opened up. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
So, I love that band. I just recently, so like I listened to them a lot, not a lot, but like back in like the 2011 era, and like they kind of fell off for me, and then I revisited them, and I was like, this is such a good band. Oh man,
they're
glad you mentioned them. I love them.
Yeah, no, they were a really great band. This one venue, Hanover House was the name of it.
Yeah.
They would book anything from like death metal like that, and you'd walk in, it'd be the fucking scariest. They had a bar, you'd go in there. There's like bikers with shaved heads with fucking swastikas and a fucking skull, and I'm like,
they must not like God Forbid then.
Yeah, and I'm just like, I walk in there, I'm like, oh shit, I'm just gonna go back this way. And then there was like a pop punk band played there, and it was like a completely different setting altogether. And I'm like, this is so fucking, it was just a very weird venue and weird times in Connecticut for the music scene altogether.
Absolutely.
So,
oh man, music in general.
Yeah. Wow, that's the funny part. It's like in Connecticut. I don't know. I'm sure it's the same in Massachusetts at times, especially. It's like you'd get some weird like deathcore band. And then be like some pop punk band headlining. It'd just be like some weird like mixture of underground bands at some club because the booker had no idea what the fuck they were doing.
Right, I bring it up, and then the Worcester Palladium's always one that comes up, and it's like that's the same thing. It's like we'd be looking to like the shows coming up, and we're like, all right, cool, we'll go to that. It's a death metal show, and like to get all subgenre. It's like, oh, okay, that's like a melodic black metal show. Cool, we'll go to that. Then I'm like, oh, cool, like Tech Nine's playing here. Okay.
Wow.
Then, okay. ICP's playing here. Okay, like whatever. I don't know if you've ever gone out to the Rock and Shock Festival in Worcester. They do it every year. The one year I went out, I went to the first 2 days because it was a 3-day thing, and like and the first day was like August Burns Red and Acacia Strain, like all these like melodic and like deathcore bands, and I was like, all right, this is really cool. Like I'm excited. I came out, and I for the life of me I can't remember who played the second day. It was probably like Behemoth or something like. Kind of black metal. There's bands I was still at the time. And the third day was like Twisted and ICP, and I'm like, oh, why? Like, can we make sure we leave?
I went into before we hit the road, I went into a whole YouTube ICP wormhole last week or 2 weeks.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't even know how this happened.
But you know what, though? That's where you can find Matt Cross. JCW. Remember JCW? And Dog. Yeah. Like Dog 20, that was Matt Cross.
Juggalo Champion shit wrestling. I was watching. Do you ever watch that YouTube series? And then there's like a portion of the series that says, the dick bag, where they just say they name a bunch of wrestlers, who's a dick, who's not. And,
right.
ICP was a part of this, so I'm like, oh, I'll watch this one after watching another one, and then I was just like, turned into me watching like 4 different shoot interviews of fucking ICP. Then I realized at like 2 a.m, I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, I learned way more about these guys than I fucking should have.
Absolutely.
But the one thing that I stepped away from is that they have a lot of respect for the professional wrestling business.
Absolutely.
Which I was, it's like, it totally made me look at them different. They might be a bunch of goofballs, or fans are a bunch of goofballs.
Absolutely.
But it made me look at them.
They very much respect wrestling. Like, they obviously they made a lot. They made the appearances in WCW with, like, Vampiro and all that. And, I think that they make an appearance with the Oddities in WWF, I'm pretty sure I remember.
Right.
And then, of course, they had their own wrestling company, and there wasn't really a lot of names, but they had, Matt Cross was on there. King Kong Bundy.
They actually ran shows at the Webster. I don't know if you remember that. Yeah, they ran a couple wrestling. Actually, I think that might have been like one of 2 or 3 different wrestling companies that ran shows at the Webster, which I never attended any of them because, well, there was no way I was driving out of my way to go see that shit. But, and I've gone through some bad wrestling shows on purpose. So
I haven't done any bad ones on purpose, but I've just gone to them and like, oh, this didn't turn out very good.
Well, I think, was it last year after I first moved into this house, the Oakdale Theater is 10 minutes from my house. I got free tickets to like an all midget wrestling show, and I was like, oh, all right, it's free, so whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
Joel Gertner was there. How bad's it going to be?
Yeah.
About 30 minutes into it, I said, hey, you want to go? To my buddy. I said, can we go home now?
Yeah,
so I've had enough. I already had 2 beers, and Joel Gertner and local radio stations. I'm done. I met Puppet too. Yeah, I met was it Puppet that recently passed from TNA, NWA TNA back then.
I don't know.
He's the midget wrestler that was on the earliest NWA TNA.
I think I saw something about it recently. I can't remember the top of my head.
Yeah, he recently passed. So.
Yeah.
All right.
That's unfortunate.
All right, I'm about to wrap it up. So, where can we find the Toxic Terror on social media?
You can find me almost everywhere. I don't have a Twitter, but that's just
no Twitter. You need to get on the Twitter.
I don't post statuses a lot, you know. And I know that's not what it's all about, but it's another social media thing I don't really want to keep up on. I'm on Facebook. Easily search Danny Adam. I think I'm like the first or second one. Same with Google. If you go on Google and search Danny Adam, I'm like the first one. Something to always take into effect is, hey, when you're gonna be a wrestler, make sure no one has your name. There was like an MMA fighter who had my name, and he didn't last very long, thankfully. So sorry for your guy, but help me out. Same thing on YouTube. Go to YouTube, type in Danny Adam. I'm usually like the first one, and it can link you right to it. My YouTube link's also on my Facebook. Instagram, search Toxic Terror. Pro Wrestling Tees, you can find me there too. Search Danny Adam. I got my shirts for sale. So can't miss that.
I've seen the new designs. You need to get me a new one. I have
a new one coming out soon. I don't want to give anything away. It's old video game related though. I won't give more away than that. Hopefully it's coming soon.
Are you a gamer?
Absolutely, I'm a gamer. That's probably what I'm going to go do when I get off of here.
That's awesome.
I like a lot of I have the Fallout. The Fallout thing was piece that everybody loved. It was a hot seller, so big time gamer. That's pretty much all I ever did.
I think I have the earliest shirt that you made, or one of the earliest.
You do. I saw it. Thank you for wearing it. I saw you had it at Alley Fights. Not a big fan of that shirt now. Back then, I was like, "This is so cool! I got my own shirt." And I'm like, I could have done way better.
I love that design, and my wife stole it from me just for the record because she liked that design a lot. So
it is. I will say this. Unfortunately, it's not on my Pro Wrestling Tees site, but I got a whole bunch of new there.
Yeah.
So, but that's where you can find me on social media: Facebook Danny Adam, YouTube Danny Adam, Instagram Toxic Terror. So it's all there. Pro Wrestling Tees Danny Adam. So.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. This was a great time. Let's not try and get too confused with music.
Absolutely.